people. Meet Tom, my new husband, and your new king.
Tom didn't believe in aliens. Not until one bled on his doorstep. The crash had been quiet. No sonic boom, no fiery streak across the sky. Just a faint ripple in the clouds, a flicker behind the pines, and then a sudden stillness so deep it made the air feel wrong. He thought maybe a tree had fallen. Maybe lightning struck without thunder. But when he stepped outside, the snow in the woods was glowing faintly blue. He followed it. Half a mile through the forest, through silence and ash, he found the crater shallow, smoking, ringed with melted snow. At its center, twisted metal, shaped like no aircraft he'd ever seen. And crawling from the wreckage, dragging herself across frozen ground, was a woman with silver eyes, cracked armor, and blood the color of molten steel. She didn't speak, just collapsed at the edge of the trees, gasping like each breath might be her last. Tom didn't scream, didn't question, didn't run. He lifted her carefully, like she might shatter, and carried her back to his cabin. The hike back was brutal. Her frame wasn't heavy, but every breath she took was a wet rattle. The armor cut into her skin at strange angles. She winced once when he adjusted his grip under her shoulders. Her body went limp after that. No first aid kit, no plan, just blankets, a fire, and half a can of beans he warmed over the stove. She was unconscious by the time he fed her, but somehow, even through broken ribs and blood-stained lips, she swallowed. He didn't know what she was. Didn't know why she'd come. He just knew she was alive and hurting. So he saved her. Tom Daniels had lived alone in the Alaskan interior for 6 years. The cabin was his third rebuild. Fire took the first. An avalanche crushed the second. This one stood firm off-grid, tight with wood stove warmth, and the smell of pine sap soaked into everything. She slept for 12 hours straight. When she finally stirred, he was stacking more wood inside. Her silver eyes snapped open like a switch had been flipped. Her breath hitched. She tried to sit up. "Don't," Tom said. He kept his voice calm. "Soft. You've got broken ribs. Maybe more. Let me check you again." Her gaze darted around the cabin. She tried to rise anyway, wincing, breath shallow, eyes sharp with pain. She got halfway upright before she slumped against the cot again. Tom crouched beside her. "You understand me?" She blinked slowly. Her skin, or whatever it was, had gone pale under the strange bruising. Blue and gray tones in streaks, like ink underwater. He pressed gently against her side. She winced again. He watched for signs of flail chest or crepitus, anything that might suggest compound fractures, but it seemed her armor had taken the worst of the impact. No open wounds, just fractured ribs, at least 4, maybe more. He paused. "You've probably got a bruised lung, maybe 2. She whispered something, a word he didn't recognize. Her voice was hoarse, layered, but melodic. She blinked slowly again, as if surprised he hadn't left her to die. Tom stood. "I've got broth on the stove. Beef. You eat meat?" She stared at him. "That's a yes or no question," he said. She blinked once, then, slowly, nodded. He fed her with a spoon, one careful sip at a time. Her hands trembled too badly to hold anything, and every swallow looked like it hurt. She made no sound, but her jaw clenched after each spoonful. When she was done, she lay back down and stared at the ceiling beams like they might fall on her. Tom pulled the blanket higher over her. "You need rest and warmth. Your body's still in shock." She didn't reply. But when he moved to put another log in the stove, she spoke again, a question this time. "Why?" she said. The word rasped out, strange but recognizable. "Why help me?" Tom didn't look up from the fire. "Because you're hurt, that's enough." She watched him in silence for a long time after that. That night, Tom sat near the fire and reread an old tattered novel, keeping one eye on the woman resting in his cot. He didn't sleep. He couldn't, not with the weight of unknown biology lying broken in his home. Her breathing remained shallow, but steady. The next morning, she tried to sit up again. This time, she managed. "Careful," he warned. "You'll just set yourself back." She stared at him. "Bones healing," she said, her voice firmer now. "Slow, but stable." "You shouldn't be talking," he said, setting a mug of warm water beside her. "Drink. No food until you hold that down." She did, in small, careful sips. Then looked at the window. "You are alone?" "Yeah," Tom set his book down. "You crashed 5 miles outside the nearest road. Nobody saw. No one came after you. Yet." She nodded. Her eyes flicked to the door, to the fireplace, to the kettle, like she was cataloging everything. Then she looked at him. Really looked. "You're not military." "No. Not doctor. I was a paramedic. 10 years. Retired early." Her lips twitched, not a smile. Something more pained. "Then why here? So far? From your kind?" Tom leaned back. "Because I needed to be." She didn't ask more. He was grateful for that. Instead, she reached slowly into the tattered remnants of her chest plate and pulled something out, a small orb, dimly pulsing. "Beacon," she whispered. "Low signal. Others will come." Tom nodded. "They friends?" She hesitated. Then, "Not all." By the 3rd day, she could stand, just barely. He had rigged a splint against her side using foam padding from an old rifle case and medical tape. Her breathing improved. The bruising was still vivid, but she moved less like a shattered statue and more like a woman regaining strength. She studied everything. The fire, the woodpile, the shelves. She touched the wool blanket with reverence and sniffed the soap as though it might be poison. When he played a radio broadcast from a weather station, she listened like it was music. On the 5th day, she asked for his name. "Tom," he said, setting a plate of eggs beside her. "Tom Daniels." She held the plate delicately, her fingers still unsteady. "I am Sarai." He tilted his head. "Last name?" She paused, then said a word that didn't fit into any Earth language. Then she shook her head. "Sarai, it is enough." He let it be. That night, a storm rolled in. Heavy wind battered the trees. Sarai stood, wrapped in one of his coats, staring out the window like she'd never seen snow spiral like that. "Do your people live in cold places?" Tom asked, sipping coffee. She turned her gaze to him. "Not like this." Her fingers clutched the windowsill. "Where I come from, storms are controlled. Not random, not alive." Tom glanced at the fire. "Yeah, well, out here, nature doesn't ask permission." Her eyes narrowed, not in suspicion, but in thought. "You helped me, with nothing to gain." He shrugged. "Maybe I just didn't want someone dying on my porch." Sarai turned fully to him. "In my empire, such kindness, it is not given. Not freely." "Well," he said, sipping his coffee, "welcome to Earth." She looked at him for a long time after that. And this time, when she blinked, he saw something deeper behind those silver eyes. Not just pain, not just exhaustion. Something like wonder. The storm lasted 2 days. Wind peeled through the trees like some giant's breath, bending spruce until the trunks moaned. Snow piled high against the door. Tom kept the fire going in shifts, 1 hour asleep, 1 awake, switching logs, boiling water, checking on Sarai when she coughed too hard. Her ribs were healing, but slowly, realistically. The bruising had deepened before fading. She could walk 10 steps now without wincing. She still needed help standing from the cot. Tom watched her eyes more than anything else. On the 2nd morning, they didn't just track him, they lingered, studied, absorbed. Like she wasn't just recovering, she was calculating. That worried him more than her injuries. He caught her by the shelf, shivering, reaching for a compass. She turned it over in her palm, watching the needle spin. "That won't help you," he said, setting a tin of powdered milk beside her. "We're out of range of anything magnetic that'd make sense to you." She didn't flinch. "It still points. Your world is stubborn." He raised an eyebrow. "You mean predictable?" "I mean unbent." That gave him pause. Sarai's breathing was stronger now, still shallow, still favoring one side, but she spoke in full sentences, her accent warping syllables like they were being translated mid-air. She asked questions. About the woods, the stove, the sound a moose made. She laughed once, a sharp, sudden sound, when Tom described trying to chase one off his roof with a broom. but she never told him why she was here. Not until the beacon blinked. It was just past dawn when Tom saw the glow. The orb she'd hidden in her armor was pulsing slow, like a heartbeat. Pale violet. Unnatural in the warmth of the cabin. Tom poured coffee and waited. Sarai sat across from him, her posture stiffer. She hadn't wrapped herself in his coat this time. She wore only the tattered underlayer of her armor, silver blue and matte, molded close to her form. She spoke without looking at him. "They're coming." Tom stirred sugar into the mug. "Who?" "My guard. The loyal ones. They tracked the pod's descent." "You're sure?" She nodded once. "They would have burned the forest if they thought me dead." Tom drank. "Should I be worried?" Sarai's gaze lifted. "They will not harm you, but they may not understand." He gave a dry chuckle. "I get that a lot." She didn't laugh. Instead, she placed the beacon on the table. "You should go. Leave. Before they arrive." "No." Sarai tilted her head. "You have no debt to me. I also didn't drag your broken body through the snow so I could toss you back into space half-healed." Her jaw flexed. "Then understand this. I am not a diplomat. I am not a scout. I am a queen." Tom's brow rose. "You're serious." "I fled a coup. My own family. My own council. I crashed here expecting to die." Her voice softened. "And instead, I found you." He set his mug down. "I'm no king. You gave me warmth. Safety. Food." Her silver eyes locked on his. "That is more than most give their rulers." A long silence followed. Outside, snow slid from the roof in clumps. The fire crackled like it had heard something it wasn't meant to. Then Sarai leaned back, exhaled, and winced. "That pain in your ribs?" Tom asked. "It's less," she said, "but not gone." He nodded. "Then you're not leaving yet." They came at midnight. No sound, no light, just a hum that rattled the coffee mugs and made the cabin lights flicker once. Tom stepped outside with a flashlight and saw nothing. Then the sky moved. A ship hovered 30 feet above the treetops, cloaked in something that twisted the air around it. The snow beneath it didn't fall, it danced, suspended like someone had hit pause on gravity. And then 6 figures stepped out of nothing. They wore armor shaped like insects and stars, not bulky, not sleek, something in between, efficient, terrifying. 4 stood still. The 2 in front advanced toward the cabin without hesitation. Tom didn't move. The taller one spoke. "Step aside, native." Tom held up a hand. "She's still healing. You are not authorized." "She's inside. She's safe. Don't try to kick the door in." The shorter one tilted his head. "Are you the caretaker?" Tom bristled at the word, but nodded. The tall one stepped closer. "Move or be moved." The door creaked open behind him. Sarai stood there, wrapped in one of his thickest coats. Her posture regal, her eyes sharp. She held onto the frame to steady herself. "He stays," she said. The guards froze. The tall one recovered first. "My queen, you have sustained cranial injury. We must assess." "He stays," she repeated, louder this time. Tom didn't look at her, but he heard the weight in her voice. It wasn't begging, it wasn't ordering. It was a choice, already made. The guards exchanged glances, then they stepped aside. Sarai turned to Tom. "Pack what you need. I didn't say I was going. You may not have a choice." Tom glanced at the ship above. "They don't seem too friendly." "They are not," she said. "Not yet." He hesitated. Then quietly, "What happens if I don't go?" Sarai looked at him for a long moment, then spoke with quiet certainty. "Then they'll kill you when I fall asleep." Tom nodded. "Guess I'm going then." He packed light. Boots, jacket, med kit, some food. A worn photograph of his brother tucked into the pocket of his bag. When he turned to leave, he looked at the cabin, the hearth, the smell of wood smoke, the shelves lined with books and old maps. He let the moment settle. Then he stepped into the snow. The guards didn't speak again. They flanked Sarai like statues, lifting her when she faltered, guiding her toward the rippling air where the ship waited. Tom followed, feeling more like a ghost than a passenger. Inside the ship, gravity pressed sideways. Light had no clear source. Sarai collapsed into a seat molded to her armor's shape. One guard brought her water. Tom sat awkwardly across from her. "They won't like this," she said, watching his face. "Neither do I," he said. "But I don't run when someone's still bleeding." Sarai exhaled. "Your world," she murmured, "breeds strange men." Tom shrugged. "Strange beats dead." The ship lifted. Earth fell away. And with it, the life he'd built from ruin. The silence, the cabin, the choice to live alone, untouched by war or noise or politics. Now he was in the middle of something ancient, something powerful. And sitting across from him, wrapped in his coat, was a queen who owed him nothing and yet had staked her safety on his kindness. Tom didn't know what came next. But for now, the fire was behind them. And the stars were opening wide. The ship didn't land. It folded. One moment, they were above the tree line. The next, stars snapped into view like someone had flung back a curtain. Tom felt the shift in his stomach before he saw it. Not acceleration, not movement, but displacement. Like the cabin of the ship had been moved, wholesale, into some other layer of space. He didn't throw up, but he held onto the seat rail tighter than he wanted to admit. Sarai noticed. Her gaze flicked to his hands, then back to his face. She said nothing. Her own breathing was still uneven. One of the guards stood beside her, adjusting a brace-like device over her side. Tom watched. The brace sealed over her ribs, locking with a hiss and a faint flicker of blue light. He could see her flinch. "That thing hurt?" he asked. "It restricts expansion, supports the fractures." She met his gaze. "I could have used this 3 days ago." Tom grunted. "You'd have gone into respiratory failure if you'd worn it back then. Lungs were too swollen. You'd have drowned in your own blood." The guard stared at him, expression unreadable behind a visor. Tom stared back. Sarai finally broke the silence. "This is Tom Daniels. He is not to be touched." None of the guards responded. But the shift was felt. The capital ship didn't appear until they were nearly beside it. It hung in space like an impossible ring, a circle of towers and lights orbiting an empty void, as though gravity had given up and started obeying politics instead. The shuttle threaded through one of the gates. Tom felt pressure shift in his ears. And then they were inside. The landing bay gleamed like a museum, all metal curves and silent attendants. Sarai stood with effort, bracing against the arm of the smaller guard. Tom stepped out behind her, boots touching alien alloy that thrummed faintly underfoot. A reception waited. 5 figures, all dressed in elaborate armor, less functional, more ceremonial. The tallest stepped forward. "Queen Sarai," he said. "You have returned. The council awaits." His voice was cold, formal, no welcome in it. Sarai straightened. "This is Tom Daniels. He will remain with me." The man's gaze flicked to Tom like someone might glance at a dead insect. "This is not permitted," he said. Sarai smiled tight and sharp. "Then change your permissions." Before the man could reply, her legs buckled. Tom caught her instinctively, supporting her weight. "She needs real medical treatment," he said. "And not a word from you unless you're pointing me to it." The guards tensed. The tall man looked scandalized. But Sarai's hand rose weak but commanding. "No one touches him," she whispered. The man stepped aside. The medbay was like nothing Tom had ever seen. No walls. Just glowing panels that formed around them as needed. A raised platform shaped itself to Sarai's frame. Machines hovered, scanning silently. Lights passed over her body in slow pulses. One technician approached Tom, offering a translation implant. He refused. The technician seemed surprised, but didn't argue. Sarai lay on the table, eyes closed. Her voice, when it came, was faint. "They expected me to be dying." "You were," Tom said. She opened one eye. "They wanted it." Tom didn't reply. The scan above her pulsed once more, then began projecting internal visuals, skeletal structures, muscle fiber, a system of organs he couldn't begin to name. Her ribs were healing unevenly. One lung showed signs of pleural scarring. Her blood oxygen had stabilized, but she was still anemic by her species' standards. He pointed at the display. "You need rest. nutrition, no standing speeches, no throne rooms. Sarai smiled. You sound like a nurse. I sound like someone who watched you pass out twice this week. She closed her eyes again. You're staying with me. You sure that's wise? She didn't answer. Later, a room was assigned to him not by Sarai, but by the palace AI, which informed him of it via a blinking panel on the wall. The room was too clean, too quiet. It adjusted the temperature based on his movements, projected landscapes on the walls when it thought he was bored, and played soft ambient sounds that annoyed him until he figured out how to turn them off. He didn't sleep. At some point, a knock or something like it came at the door. A woman in layered robes stepped in. Alien, tall, with skin like polished copper. I am Kyra, she said, advisor to Queen Sarai. Tom sat up. And? You are an anomaly. Tom rubbed his face. Yeah, I get that a lot. She stepped further in, folding her hands. Our queen is unwell. Your presence distracts her recovery. She's alive because I kept her warm in a snowstorm. Kyra didn't blink. And now you expect reward. He stood. No, I expect her not to get assassinated by people like you. The air went still. Kyra's eyes narrowed. If you were anyone else, I'd consider that a threat. I'm not anyone else. She studied him. She declared you as consort. Do you even understand what that means? Tom stiffened. She didn't declare anything. She has made it known to the court that you are hers. She did this in front of witnesses. Protocol binds us now. Even those who would see you gone cannot move openly. Tom sat slowly. She's still hurt, he said. Why would she do that? Kyra's gaze softened just a little. Because you gave her beans and warmth. And you didn't ask who she was before she could stand. Tom let that sink in. She's wrong, he said finally. I don't belong here. Kyra nodded. Then tell her that, and accept what follows. The next morning, or what passed for morning in a station without sun, Sarai summoned him. She stood by a wide panel of glass, watching stars scroll past like lazy sparks. Her brace was gone, her breathing steadier. Tom approached slowly. They want me gone, he said. Yes, she said. They're not wrong. She turned. You don't belong here, Tom Daniels. You belong in your cabin, with your wood stove and your silence. He nodded. But if you go, she said, I will fall, and my enemies will inherit everything you saved me from. He said nothing. She stepped closer. When I woke up by your fire, I thought I was hallucinating. I thought the softness of the blanket was death playing tricks. But you were real, and kind, and maddeningly stubborn. I'm not royalty. No, you're something rarer. Tom folded his arms. You really declared me as your husband? Consort, she corrected. By right of restoration. That a real thing? She nodded. Rare, ancient, binding. Tom sighed. Great. She took his hand. You can walk away. I will tell them it was delirium. You will be returned home. No shame. He looked at her fingers wrapped in his, still thin, still recovering. And he remembered the way she'd gasped in the snow, the way she'd watched the fire like it was the first warm thing she'd ever seen. He squeezed her hand once. Let's see what this throne of yours looks like. She smiled, tired but whole. It's not much different from a chair, just heavier. Figures. Outside, the stars kept burning. But inside, something older than empires had already begun. It didn't look like a throne room. Tom expected pomp, banners, maybe a ridiculous platform surrounded by courtiers in robes thicker than scents. What he got was glass. The floor reflected the stars. The ceiling was a half-dome of transparent alloy, tinted just enough to prevent blindness. Walls shifted with faint patterns, not decoration, but code, alive and updating. And in the center stood a wide, low platform with a single chair. That was it. Sarai walked toward it without hesitation. She wore a formal robe, now nothing ornate, just layered silver and deep gray, high-collared, sleeves weighted. The brace was gone, but her gait was still uneven. 2 guards flanked her. Tom walked 3 steps behind. Waiting for them were 10 members of the High Conclave, tall, sharp-eyed, half of them looking like they'd rather swallow acid than acknowledge his existence. Tom had seen that look before, in officers, in bureaucrats, in hospital administrators, deciding who deserved treatment. One of them, thin, pale, with a long braid over his shoulder, stepped forward. "My queen," he said, voice silked in venom. "We rejoice at your recovery, and marvel at your choice of companion." Sarai didn't flinch. "You know Tom Daniels. He is responsible for my survival. He will remain." The braided man offered a half-bow. "That is not protocol. Protocol did not pull me from fire," she said. "He did." Another counselor, female, stooped with age but eyes razor-bright, stepped forward. "Then let him prove it." Tom blinked. "Prove what?" "That you are fit to walk beside our queen," she said. "You claim no title, no training. You bring no knowledge of our ways." "I didn't claim anything," he said. "Precisely," said the braided man. Sarai's eyes narrowed. "He is no soldier, no spy, no schemer. That is why he is here." "And yet," said the old woman, "he stands where warlords have bowed. Let him face the trial of accord." Tom glanced at Sarai. "That as bad as it sounds?" She turned slowly. "It is not lethal." "That doesn't answer my question." They took him to an arena. It wasn't big, no spectators, no announcements, just a chamber of shifting architecture, like the walls themselves were debating their shape. In the center, a circle. Opposite him stood a man in pale armor, broad, fast, watching Tom like he was something disposable. Sarai stood at the edge, arms crossed. "He will not harm you," she said. "The trial is not combat, it is demonstration." "Of what?" "Instinct, adaptability, will." Tom stepped into the circle. "Good, because if it were a boxing match, I'd already be dead." The rules were simple. Survive. Every minute, the environment changed. The floor dropped, rose, tilted. Blades of low-energy light swept across the arena like heatless lasers. The other man didn't attack, he manipulated the terrain, tried to force Tom into falls, traps, hesitation. Tom didn't fight. He moved. Slower, more deliberate. He ducked, rolled, used momentum instead of brute force. When a wall shifted, he climbed it. When a ledge collapsed, he leapt sideways onto a low panel and waited. After 15 minutes, the arena pulsed blue. The trial ended. The guards stepped forward. So did Sarai. Tom stood panting, soaked with sweat, one knee bruised and hand scraped raw. "Not bad for a hermit," she said. He looked at her. "That the hardest test they got?" "No," she said. "It's the only one you can win by thinking." The conclave met again. Kyra stood this time, her voice clearer, less hostile. "You passed," she said. "You understand danger. You don't provoke. You adapt." Tom sat stiffly. "Yeah, well, that's survival in the woods too." The braided man stepped forward. "Yet it is not enough." Sarai cut him off. "Then it will become enough." She walked to the center of the chamber, straight back now, breath even. "I invoke the bonded accord," she said. Gasps, movement. One counselor dropped a data slate. Kyra stepped forward. "Sarai? It is my right. I choose consort by action, not approval. I have chosen." She looked at Tom. "In our laws, the one who restores the sovereign may share in rule. It is ancient, not symbolic, real." The braided man barked a laugh. "Then he must wear it. All of it." Sarai didn't blink. "He will." Tom whispered to her later. "You should have warned me." "I gave you soup," she said. "That should have been warning enough." That night, Tom stood on a balcony outside the quarters they now shared. Not royal, but not common either. Big enough to feel empty. He stared at the stars. Sarai joined him quietly. Her steps were nearly silent now. Her ribs still needed another week, maybe 2, but she was upright. Healing right. "They hate me," Tom said. "Yes," she said. "Even Kyra." "She's starting to understand." Slowly. He looked at her. "You really meant all that?" "I am not in the habit of lying to myself." He leaned on the rail. "So now what? You rule. I. What? Smile and nod. You stand. You listen. You advise. I'm no advisor. You know when to speak, when not to. That already makes you better than half this court. A pause. Then Tom reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, old, creased a dozen times. A photo. Sarai took it, looked. Two men, one older, smiling. The other younger, arms around a moose's neck, laughing. My brother, Tom said, died overseas. I built the cabin after. I'm sorry. He'd have liked you, Tom said. Would have called you terrifying, but liked you. Sarai didn't laugh, but she touched the corner of the photo gently. I'm glad you didn't run, she said. I thought about it. And now? Tom looked at her. And then, very softly, now I want to see what kind of queen you really are. She smiled, not with her mouth, with her eyes. And for the first time since the crash, Sarai looked safe. They called it the Hall of Bloom, an orbital garden that circled the inner sanctum of the royal fleet, 10 miles of biomes and flora from 100 worlds. Sarai insisted Tom walk it with her every morning. Courts are made of talk, she told him, but power blooms where silence is respected. Tom didn't argue, mostly because she was right. Also because every time he opened his mouth near the council these days, someone either flinched or wrote something down. It had been 9 days since the bonded accord was declared. Sarai's ribs were nearly healed. She no longer winced when standing. The med team had withdrawn the brace 2 days ago. Her oxygen levels were back to normal. Her appetite had returned, and, to Tom's surprise, she liked oatmeal with cinnamon. He taught her how to make it with powdered milk. She taught him how to shut down a conversation in 4 words or less. Balance. But the court hadn't quieted. Behind doors and under breath, whispers still bloomed like fungus. That the queen had lost her mind. That the Earthman was a placeholder. That soon things would be corrected. Tom heard none of this firsthand. But Sarai did. And on the 10th morning, a small explosion shattered 3 sections of the Hall of Bloom. It wasn't meant to kill. That was clear. The charges were placed near the support struts of the arboreal biome, beautiful, dramatic, designed to collapse a section of trees into a star-facing viewport. Glass rained down like frozen tears. Alarms screamed. Guards rushed in too late. Sarai was already shielding Tom with her body. He had tackled her down first, but she twisted even with her ribs not fully set to shield his head with her arms. When the dust cleared, they were both scraped, coughing, but alive. Tom shoved off her arm. You're bleeding. It's shallow. He grabbed a cloth from a dropped med pack. Let me see. She pushed it away. Later. Someone did this to send a message. Tom stood slowly, scanning the chaos. You know who? Sarai's gaze darkened. Yes. They called him Marshal Ven, third cousin to the throne, security advisor, former commander of the royal fleet. A man who, by all accounts, had never truly respected the concept of peace. Sarai confronted him in the war chamber, a room lined with real-time data streams and planetary threat assessments. 10 guards stood at attention. Kyra was already there. Tom stayed silent as Sarai spoke. You sent a bomb to my garden. Ven, tall, hawk-eyed, fingers clasped behind his back, smiled with careful restraint. I sent nothing, he said. Tragedy is part of reconstruction. You bring a foreign element to our court. Turbulence is inevitable. Tom stepped forward. You almost killed her. And yet she stands, Ven said. As do you. Sarai's voice dropped an octave. You will confess. Ven smiled. Or I open the full report. The one that proves your communication with the palace during the coup. The one you thought erased. His face twitched. Tom saw it. So did Kyra. You would exile me, Ven said. Sarai's voice was ice. I would gut you in front of your grandchildren and hang your name from the lowest tower. Silence. Then Kyra stepped forward. He resigns. Ven didn't protest. But as he turned to go, he looked at Tom not with hatred, with calculation. You won't last, he said. Tom met his eyes. We'll see. That night, Tom sat with Sarai on a balcony facing the unfiltered void. She wore a black robe, her arm freshly bandaged. Her breathing was calm, but deeper than usual residual stress. She hadn't been resplinted. The med team cleared her for light activity. He checked her lung sounds himself, just in case. They were clear. "I could go back," Tom said. Sarai didn't look at him. "You'd be safer," he added. "No," she said. "I would be alone." He turned. "That isn't the same thing." She looked at him then. "It is to me." A long silence stretched between them. Then Sarai said, "Tomorrow we speak to the Outer Council. They must ratify our accord." Tom exhaled. "Will they?" "They'll try to delay. And if they don't, then I make a second declaration, one the laws cannot unbind." He stared. "What declaration?" She didn't blink. "Marriage." The word felt heavier than it should have. Tom stood. "You sure you're not concussed?" She smiled barely. "Not yet." He ran a hand through his hair. "That's a lot. Do you want to go home?" Tom was quiet for a long time. Then, softly, "I want to be somewhere I'm needed." Sarai reached for his hand. "You already are." The chamber of ratification lay at the heart of the Citadella structure, buried within the ship's gravity well, secured behind layers of psychic shielding and encrypted authority. Only sovereigns, heirs, and the Outer Council were permitted inside. That, and one very nervous former paramedic from Alaska. Tom's suit itched. Not because of discomfort it adjusted to temperature and movement like a second skin, but because he hated the weight of spectacle. He hadn't worn anything this formal since his brother's funeral. He didn't want to be here. But Sarai stood beside him, and that changed everything. She was radiant. Not in any embellished Wayno jewels, no golden veil but in the way she carried herself. He could see it now, clearer than ever. Her strength wasn't in the crown or the declarations. It was in the silence between words, the decisions made when no one watched. And today, all eyes watched. The Outer Council formed a circle above them, each representative seated on a suspended platform shaped like a crescent blade. Dozens of voices hummed through the comms, untranslated. The atmosphere was thick with protocol, with tradition, with suspicion. Sarai stepped into the center. Tom followed. "This assembly is convened," said the voice of the chamber AI. "Purpose, sovereign bond ratification, and status clarification." One counselor leaned forward. Her skin was pearl gray, eyes like liquid copper. "The Queen proposes elevation of a Terran male. No lineage, no legacy, no military contribution." Another voice chimed in. "He is not educated in interstellar law. He does not represent a vassal world. He lacks psionic potential." Tom whispered to Sarai, "I don't even know what that last one means." Sarai didn't smile. Her gaze never wavered. "He healed me," she said aloud. "He housed me, fed me, protected me when I could not stand." A third voice, sharp and cold. "And now you would crown him?" "I would not crown him," she replied. "I would not give him rule. I would give him place." Silence. Then Sarai took a breath. "You fear contamination. You fear chaos. I understand. But hear this. If not for Tom Daniels, I would be ash in a crater on an uncharted world. And many of you would be kneeling before Marshal Venn, or worse." A long murmur rippled through the council. "I name him as my bonded," she said. "Not by convenience, not by urgency, by truth. You want to see power. Look at what I chose when no one watched, when no one listened. I chose a man who stayed." Tom shifted uncomfortably. Sarai reached for his hand. Another counselor, one of the few who hadn't spoken, now floated lower. "And if he chooses not to stay?" the woman asked. Tom cleared his throat. "I didn't ask for this," he said, louder than he meant to. "I didn't ask to be dragged through stargates and trials and court politics. I had a good life. Quiet. Cold. Yeah, but mine." The woman nodded. "And now?" Tom glanced at Sarai. "She didn't need saving," he said. "She needed space to heal. And when someone gives you trust like that, you don't walk away. Not unless you're a fool." The woman smiled. "And are you?" "Some days," Tom said. "But not today." A pause. Then the counselor spoke to the chamber. I yield approval. Lights flickered. One by one, more voices followed. Some reluctant, some curt, but none dissenting. The AI confirmed. Ratification complete. Accord recognized. Status, bonded sovereign. Sarai exhaled slowly. Tom realized he'd been holding his breath. There was no parade, no grand coronation, just a quiet reception held in the lower sanctum, where the crown was never worn and only trusted voices gathered. Kyra brought him a glass of something amber and sweet. You didn't faint, she said. A good start. I blacked out for 3 seconds during that silence. Does that count? She almost laughed. Almost. Later, Tom and Sarai stood by a viewport overlooking the galactic rim. The stars swirled in a slow spiral, distant and impossibly vast. Her arm brushed his. No guards, no advisors. Just 2 people staring into something older than time. You regret it? Sarai asked. Tom shook his head. No. Even if it means you never go back? I brought my memories, he said. That's enough. Sarai nodded. Then, after a moment, you gave me your home. He looked at her. And you gave me yours. Outside, stars shifted. Systems turned. Planets moved unseen, their peoples unaware of the choices made in quiet. Tom took her hand. Somewhere, deep in the forest he left behind, snow melted slowly into spring. But here now the fire that mattered burned in her. He had no throne, but she sat beside him, and that was more than enough.